Good day, ladies and gents. We are continuing Unit 7, right triangles, and today we are going to be working on trig functions. So this is SOHCAHTOA. That is an acronym to remember the order of this. Sine of theta, that's what that stands for. That's the angle. So sine of theta equals opposite over hypotenuse. So cosine of theta equals adjacent over hypotenuse. So CAH, cosine of theta equals adjacent over hypotenuse. And tan of theta equals opposite over adjacent. So tan of theta equals opposite over adjacent. So that's what that acronym stands for. Those are the trig functions. Okay, and then, so once you have this, you can also move it to this when you're solving for the angle, which we're going to talk about in a second. All right, so let's just jump right into it. Okay, so this needs to stay out on your desk the whole time. This is page 1, so keep this out the whole time, and we're going to be going to page 13. All right, so we're on page 13, trig functions, so trig ratio notes. So here we go. So starting here, before we start, we should go ahead and draw another right triangle. So we're drawing a second right triangle here. Okay, and so everything in the same spot. All right. Okay, so this was B, and this was A down here. Okay, so with that, all right, so let's zoom in a little bit. Okay, so we're going to put the theta, the angle, we're going to put the theta up here on this triangle, and on this triangle, we'll put the theta here. So these are the two ways that the triangles can look, which is written right here as well. Okay, so we need practice with this. All right, first of all, we have to agree what adjacent, opposite, hypotenuse, all those, what they're going to be. So you're going to physically put your finger on the 90 degrees. You are touching two sides of the triangle. See, I'm physically touching this side and this side. When I put my finger on the 90 degrees, the one side I am not touching is the H, the hypotenuse. So we have found the H. Now put your finger on the theta, the angle. Okay, put your finger on the theta, and the one side, you see I'm touching two sides here, the one side you're not touching will be your O. And your final side will be A. All right, so this is what's happening. When you get tricky with it, you got to find your H, your O, and your A. Your H, O, and A. So your hypotenuse, your opposite, and your adjacent. And find it in that order. So you see how the 90 degrees is made by straight lines? So is the letter H, made by straight lines. So you put your finger on the straight lines, the 90 degrees, and the one side you're not touching is H. Now put your finger on the theta, which is made by a circle, and so is the letter O. So when you put your finger on that, the one side you're not touching is your O, and the leftover side will be A. All right, let's do it again. So on this triangle, put your finger on the 90 degrees, which is right here. Okay, and the one side you're not touching is your H. Now put your finger on the theta, that's the angle, or the little degree symbol, right? Depending on what's happening. All right, put your finger on the theta, the angle, and the one side you're not touching will be O. And then the leftover side would be A. All right, excellent. All right, let's go to the next part. All right, so now that you've labeled everything, you would be able to find these little trig functions here. Okay, so knowing that, we have this. So sine, and you should put a little theta here. That's the angle. Oh, I should be doing this in red. Sorry. Sine of theta is SOHCAHTOA. SOHCAHTOA. So sine of theta equals opposite over hypotenuse. So left to right, top to bottom. S sine of theta equals O, opposite, over hypotenuse, H. Okay, cosine of theta. So cosine of theta, so the C stands for the cosine of theta, equals A over H, adjacent over hypotenuse. And then TOA, tan of theta, so put a little theta right there, tan of theta equals opposite over adjacent. And then that's what it stands for. Okay. Now, in this particular case, so when you have this stuff right here, well, we'll figure this out later. We'll just scratch this out. No big deal. We'll just scratch that out. We'll deal with that. We're going to be able to solve that right here. Okay, so here we go. On this problem, okay, we are going to do this twice. One with A and one with C. All right, so I'm just going to redraw the triangle again because I'm going to be doing it twice later on. So here's A, B, C, and 12, 13, and 5. All right. Okay, so this first one, it says to find the sine of A. So A is our angle. So we're going to put theta at A. So, okay, so now with this, okay, so we want to find our HO and A. So if our theta was A, we need to know where H, O, and A is. That's what we need to find, where H, O, and A are located. All right, so put your finger on the 90 degrees. So got to find your H, O, and A in that order. So put your finger on the 90 degrees. The one side you're not touching is H, and that was 13. Now put your finger on the theta. See how it's made of a circle? So go to the circle. Okay, put your finger on the theta. The one side you're not touching is O. So that would be 5. And the leftover side would be your A, which is 12. All right, so now that we have that, now we can actually plug everything in. Okay, so we know that this is O over, so sine is O over H. I'll zoom out a little bit. So it's O over H. Cosine is A over H. And tan is O over A, which is what we said up here, right? All right, so all we have to do is plug these things in. So O over H would be 5 over H, which is 13. And can you simplify that anymore? No, so that is your answer. All right, cosine is A over H. So your A was 12 and your H was 13. And can you simplify that anymore? No, so that is your answer. Okay, because you can't take anything out of top and bottom, so we're done. Okay, and then tan is O over A. Your O was 5 and your A was 12. And that's your answer. Okay, so that's how we would do these problems, and those fractions would be your answers. That's it. All right, let's do it again. What if I did sine of C? So C is your theta. So here's the angle C, and there's your theta. You're going to put the angle there. All right, let's label. So we need to find, so if your theta was C, I need to find H, O, and A. Okay, so put your finger on the 90 degrees. The one side you're not touching is your H, which is 13. Put your finger on the theta. The one side you're not touching is your O, so that's 12. And the leftover side would be your A, which is 5. Okay. All right, so now all we have to do is plug in. So sine is O over H, so cosine is A over H, ca, and tan is O over A, TOA. All right, let's just plug everything in. So O over H is 12 over 13. And can you simplify? Nope. Okay. Cosine is A over H. That is 5 over 13. Can you simplify? Nope. So we're done. And then TOA. Tan of C would be O over A. So 12 over 5. All right, so now that we have that, let's see if we can see any patterns here. Okay, so right here, So at the beginning, did you notice that when you switched your O and your A, when you switched your thetas in whatever positions, so one was at A and the other one was at C, when you did that, did you guys notice that your O and A switched? Notice that your O and your A switched, but your hypotenuse stayed the same. That's good to know. Also, you notice that we never use theta being B. Theta can't be B. Theta it cannot be the 90-degree angle when we're doing SOHCAHTOA. Okay, what else did we notice? All right, so look at the answers here. Look at the answers. Hopefully you noticed that sine of A was equal to cosine of C. And cos of A was equal to sine of C. So notice that these two are equal and these two are equal. And then also, you probably noticed that these two just flipped. All right, so it's very important to know that sine of A is equal to cosine of C. And sine of, sine of, we'll just say cosine. Cosine of A is equal to sine of C. So it's very important to know that these two are equal. So sine and cosine are equal to each other when they are different angles, and so on and so forth. All right, so just pointing that out. All right, let's go to number 2. Super exciting. Okay, so we're going to be doing this twice again. So let's just do it. All right, so K, L, M, 1634. Okay, so in this part, so we need to find our HO and A again. So when your theta is L, what's your HO and A? That's what we're going to be solving for. And over here, when your theta is M, what is your HO and A? All right. So before we start this, look at this. We're missing a side. We are missing a side, but this is a right triangle, right? So because this is a right triangle, we can just go ahead and take the time to solve for that missing side. So before we start, let's do the Pythagorean theorem. All right, so we know a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. All right, so we need to find the missing side. So when you put your finger on the 90-degree angle, the two sides you're touching are A and B. So 16 and x, because we're looking for it, is equal to the one side you're not touching, C, which is 34. All right, so we get 256 plus x squared is equal to 1156. Subtract 256 from both sides to get x squared is equal to 900. Square root both sides, you get x is equal to 300. 300, sorry. It's equal to 30. It's equal to 30. So silly. When I said 300, I'm like, wait a minute, that's way too big. Oh, it's 30. Okay, that's a little bubble thought that right off to the side here. All right, so this side right here is 30. Okay, so this side right here is 30. So, okay, so now that we have that, now we can actually start the problem. Okay, so when we have, when your theta is at L, so let's put theta right here. Okay, we got to find our HO and A. So H, put your finger on the 90 degrees. The one side you're not touching is your H, which is 34. Put your finger on the theta. The one side you're not touching is O. So I'm touching this side and this side, so this would be O, so that's 30. And the leftover side would be A. We already used 30, 34. Okay, so we have 16 left over, and there you go. All right, so now that we have that, we can actually solve this. All right, so your sign is, SOHCAHTOA. So SOHCAHTOA. Now that we have that, we can actually just start plugging stuff in. Your O was 30, your H was 34. Okay, we can simplify this. We need to simplify. So what can you take out of 30 and 34? you can take out 2. 34 divided by 2, we're left with 17. And 34 divided by 2, we have 15 over 17. There you go. And that simplifies, you get 15 over 17. All right, A over H. We get 16 over 34. And if you simplify that, what can you take out of top and bottom? I can take out a 2 again, and that would be 8 over 17. And then O over A, that would be 30 over 16. And what can you take out of top and bottom? You can take out a 2. So you're left with 15 over 8. And those are your answers. All right, let's do it again. All right, so this time we're doing your theta is m. So if theta was right here, put your finger on the 90 degrees, your straight sides, right? Your straight angle, I guess you can say. That's not really a good way to say that. Your angle made out of straight lines. Okay, so see how it has those, that's like perfect H. All right, so this would be your H. Put your finger on the theta. The one side you're not touching is your O, and the leftover side is A. So H is 34, your O was 16, and your A was 30. And please notice that your H stayed the same on both of them, and your O and your A switched. All right, so now let's actually plug stuff in. Okay, so, ka, toa. All right, let's plug it in. All right, so O over H, that would be 16 over 34. And then if you simplify that, you get 8 over 17. Okay, your cosine, A over H, that is 30 over 34. And when you simplify that, you get 15 over 17. And O over A, you get 16 over 30. And when you simplify that, you get 8 over 15. All right, so let's see if you guys see any patterns. All right, first of all, hopefully you noticed that your O and your A switched right there. So that's good to know, and your hypotenuse stayed the same. Also, please notice that sine of L is equal to cosine of M. Sine of L is equal to cosine of M. And you probably also noticed that cosine of L is equal to sine of M. Very important to know. Very important to know. And you also probably noticed that the tan, when you switch the thetas, it flipped. The fraction flipped. Okay, it did the reciprocal. Awesome. All right, so now we got that out of the way. Now let's actually do some problems. Okay, so on here, okay, let's get this going. All right, so now that we did this, okay, first thing we want to do is label this stuff. So put your finger, so that's the first step you need to do, label. So put your finger on the 90 degrees. This is your H. Put your finger on the theta, which see how it has a little circle on it? This is your O, and the leftover side is A. Okay, now that you have that, and so maybe we want to write some steps down. Okay, so our first step was to label HOA, steps. So label H, O, and A. That's our first step. Okay, then what we want to do is figure out what we have. So what two sides are you using? In this case, H was labeled and O was labeled. Okay, so that's our next step. What two sides are labeled? Okay, now we have to choose what trig function you're going to use. So for so, ka, toa. Okay, so what two sides, so what trig function has the two sides h and o? So what has h and o in it? It'd be so. H and O is right here. So this has A and H, this has O and A. So we want so. So what trig function? Choose trig function. So, ka, or toa. So you have to, there you go. So you have to choose which one is it. Which one are you going to use? Okay, so now let's plug in. So we have sine of theta, make sure you put the theta there, equals O over H. All right, plug in what we know. We know sine of 28 is equal to O, which is X, over H, which is 19. Okay, so then plug in. Plug in, and then solve. Okay, so those are your steps. So all we did was write our steps off to the side. And please remember that this is your Hot Topics page. So anytime that you find something, you're like, ooh, I need to remember that, go ahead and make sure that you put that on this page. So just going to making pretty lines. Okay, so now we have to solve. Okay, so now we're in this place. Okay, so we have this. I'm going to put this over here. So sine of 28 equals x over 19. Okay, do me a favor and put this over 1. Okay, so you have to choose what we're going to be doing. So I'm just putting this over 1 so you can see this because it's a fraction. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to choose, are you going to, so these two right here, because we're trying to get x by itself. So you have two, you actually have like 3 choices here. So your choices are, when you're solving, are you going to switch these two? Are you going to multiply? Or are you going to inverse? So those are your 3 choices. So you'll see that in a second. So when you're solving, you have 3 choices. Either you're going to switch, you're going to multiply, or you're going to inverse. So those are your choices: switch, multiply, or inverse. Okay, so right here, we want to try to get the 19 by itself, right? So right here, what we're going to do is we're going to multiply. How do you get rid of the 19? You multiply onto the other side, so it's 19 sine of 28 is equal to x. So you need to be aware that the answer could be this, in case that they don't want to solve. It could be this, or you actually put it into your calculator. Okay, so we have 2 different calculators. So I'll zoom out. So depending on what you're using, so let's say you're using this one right here. All right, so first of all, push the degree button. We need to make sure that you are in degrees. We got to make sure we're in degrees. So one more time, there's the degree button right here. Boop. Okay, and you need to make sure that you push the arrow over and make sure you're in degrees, because if you're not in degrees, you're going to get everything wrong. And I push enter. Okay, so now we're in degrees, and how do you check? Right here, it says DEG. Okay, so we're just going to plug this in. So I'm going to type in 19 sine 28 equals, and there's our answer. Okay, so let's write down that answer. Okay, so, and they said to round to nearest 10th. They said to round to nearest 10th. So how many zeros does 10 have? 1. So right now it says 8.919959693 is equal to x. Now they said to round to nearest 10th. How many zeros does 10 have? 1. So we're going 1 decimal place. So we have to choose. Are we staying at 8.9, or are we going to, what's the number after 89? 90. So 9.0. Okay, so how do you make that decision? The number right after it. So the 1. So if we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then after that 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So on the hill, if I take a ball and I put it at 1, would it roll to the other side, or would it drop back? It would drop back. So our answer was 8.9. That's our answer. If the answer was 9.0, you can either give me 9.0 or you can give me 9. Both answers are acceptable. 9 would be the better answer, though. Okay, and that's your thing. Okay, so you need to recognize that depending on what's happening, this would be an answer, this would be an answer, or 8.9. They were specific. They said round to nearest 10th, so 8.9 is our answer. Okay, number 4. Okay, put your finger on the 90 degrees. So that's our first step, is to label. That's our first step, label. So H, put your finger on the theta. This is O, and the leftover side is A. All right, your next step. What two sides are labeled? What has something on it? So that would be the O and the A. All right, now the question is, choose the trig functions, so, ka, or toa. So, ka, or toa. What trig function are you going to use? It has A and O in it, so that would be tan. So we're going to be using tan. So tan of theta equals O over A. All right, next step, plug it in. So plug in what we know. So tan of theta, which is 41, is equal to O, which is X, over A, which is 32. Okay, so depending on what's happening, this could be an answer there. All right, I ran out of room, so I'll put it up here. Okay, so now now we have to choose how are we going to get X by itself. So are we going to switch, multiply, or inverse? So how do I get rid of the 32? Well, it's dividing, so to get rid of it, you would multiply onto the other side. So that would just be 32 tan of 41 is equal to X. Okay, so how do we put it in this calculator? Okay, so first of all, we need to make sure that it is that we're in degrees. So we see how it's DEG. If it's not, here's the problem on this calculator. We hit the second button a lot, and it's right next to degrees. So if you push this button, now you're in radians. So if you have this calculator, you need to check that you're in degrees every single time, because it's really easy to change that. All right. So make sure you're in degrees every single problem. Okay, now how do we type this in? Okay. For you, you're going to have to type it in backwards. So you have to do 41 first. So 41, and this is tan. So you have to do 41 tan first. So 41 tan, and now you get to multiply by 32. And there's your answer. Because if you go the correct way, 32 tan 41, it doesn't happen. And a lot of people do 32 tan and then times 41. That is wrong. That is totally wrong. Okay, you have to do 41 tan. So you have to do this first. You have to do this first. So 41 tan, you get a decimal, now multiply by 32. And you get this answer. Okay, and then what about on this calculator? Okay, on this calculator is better because you just do it straight. You just go straight across, no thinking whatsoever. So it's just 32 tan of 41, and you get that. So make sure that you got the same answer. Okay, so we have 27.8171561 is equal to X. They said around there's 10th. So are we staying at 27.8 or going up to 27.9? 27.8 is your answer. That's it. Okay. All right, number 5. Okay, so once you get that down, everything goes really, really, really fast. Okay, so we have, first thing we want to do is label. This is H, put your finger on the theta. This is O, and the leftover side is A. What trig function? So for SOHCAHTOA, we'll just use this side. SOHCAHTOA. We have A and H and A. So H and A, that would be ka. That's cosine of theta equals A over H. So cosine of your theta, which is 43, equals A, which is 36, over H, which was X. Okay, so on this one, your X is on the bottom. Okay, we don't want X on the bottom. So we're going to switch. So this one is a switch. So we're going to switch. We're going to multiply the X, and we're going to divide by the cosine 43. Okay, so that would be X is equal to 36 over cos of 43. All right, now how do we type that in the calculator? Okay, so on this calculator, you just go straight across, right? So 36, so make sure you're in degrees, 36 divided by cos of 43. And we get that number. So you just type it straight across. Over here, okay, let's see. So 36 divided by, and you have to type it in backwards, 43 cos. And you have to push the equal sign, and there's your answer. So you have to push the equal sign, and there's your answer. Okay, so one more time. Okay, we did 36 divided by 43 cos equals, and there's our answer. All right, so we would get 49.2237886, but they said to round to the nearest tenth. So are we staying at 49.2 or are we going up to 49.3? There's a 2 afterwards, so we just stay. So 49.2 is your answer. And it does make legit sense that because it's supposed to be bigger than the 36, so yes. All right, number 6. Okay, on this one right here, so label H, O, your leftover is A. What trig function are you going to use? So let's see. So, ka, toa. All right, so we have O and H. So H and O, so right there. So sine of theta equals O over H. So sine of 33 equals O, which is 15, over H, which is X. Okay, so what do you think we're going to do? Or do you think we are going to multiply, or do you think we're switching? We need to switch because we need to get X on the top. So switch. So X equals 15 over sine of 33. All right. So depending on what they're looking for, this might be an answer, this might be an answer, or we're going to be finding our final answer, the actual decimal. So let's see. All right, on this calculator, you just type it out. So 15 divided by sine of 33, making sure you're in degrees. Push enter, we get this answer. So, and that would be, when you round, that would be 27.5. Okay, what about on this calculator? All right, so on this calculator, okay, so on this calculator, we would do, battery's dying, that's awesome. Talk about timing. We go 15, yep. We go, hold on, there we go. So 15 divided by, and we would have to do 33 sine. Enter. You have to remember to push enter on this calculator. And notice we got the same answer, 27.5. Awesome. All right, let's keep going. Okay, so we're just going to skip this. We're going to get some practice with the word problems later, so no worries. We'll come back to this later. All right, and let's go to our next page. We are skipping to page 17. Skipping to page 17. All right. So on page 17, we're doing the inverses. So anytime you're doing the angle, it's going to be an inverse. Okay, just go through the same motions. So you label H, put your finger on the theta, O, and A. So we find those. All right, so when we, what two sides are labeled? H and O. So for so, ka, toa, what are we going to label? Or what are we going to use? H and O would be sine. So sine of theta equals O over H. Sine of, well, theta we don't know, so let's just call it X, equals O over H, 15 over 24. Okay, so we want to get X by itself. So are we going to switch? No, because X is already on top. We're happy, right? Are we going to multiply? No, we're trying to get stuff away from the X. So we want to do inverse. We want to get rid of sine. So X, we're going to throw the sine onto the other side. And what's the opposite of sine? sine inverse. So you see how it has a little -1 next to it? 15 over 24. Okay, so now how do you put that in the calculator? So you always do inverse if you're looking for the angle. All right, so do you see this little symbol right here? It says sine inverse. So to get to the yellow stuff, you need to push the yellow button. So you might have a different color. So, but to get to the yellow stuff, I need to get to the yellow button. So I'm going to push second sine, and now it says sine inverse. So I hit the yellow button to get to the yellow stuff. Now I type in 15 divided by 24, close. And make sure you're in degrees or you're going to get the wrong answer. And we get this. Our angle is 38 point, and they said to nearest tenth. So that would be 38 point. Are we staying at 6 or are we going up to 7? We go to 7. So x would equal 38.7. All right, so one more time. Okay, so we would do second sine. Now it says sine inverse. 15 divided by 24. You can close parentheses, equals. And there's your answer. Okay, now how do you do it on this calculator? Okay, so on this calculator, so it's very important that you do 15 divided by 24 equals, okay, so we have that degree, sorry, that decimal, and now you're going to do second sine. And there's your answer. So we got the same answer. So this calculator is more dangerous because you can't see what you're typing. You can't remember what you did. This calculator, you can see everything. So you make a choice as to what calculator you're going to use. All right, let's try again. All right, now number 2. So put your finger on 90, that's your H. Put your finger on the theta, that's your O, and the leftover side is A. So what trig function are you going to use? So, ka, toa. So we have H and A used up, and that's ka. So cos of theta equals A over H. Cos of theta, which is what we're looking for, equals A, which is 8, over H, which is 11. All right, let's solve. Okay, so how we can get x by itself? Well, we want to get rid of the cosine. So to get rid of it, you do the inverse. So cos inverse of 8 over 11. All right, so just type that in the calculator. Make sure you're in degrees. So cos inverse of second cos. So cos inverse of 8 divided by 11. We pop out with 43.3. So 43.3. And that is your answer. All right, keep it going. We're almost done, guys. All right, number 3. All right, so H, O, and A. What trig function are we going to use? Okay, so we have so, ka, toa, and we have O and A, so that's toa. So tan of theta equals O over A. Tan of the angle, which is x, O, which is 20, over A, which is 37. Okay, now how are we going to get x by itself? Okay, we want to get rid of the tan. To get rid of tan, we have to do the inverse. So tan inverse of 20 over 37. So second tan, so tan inverse of 20 divided by 37. And we pop out with 28.4. 28.4. And does that, yeah, that looks legit. And what if you had the other calculator? Okay, so you would type 20 divided by 37. You have to push equals or it's going to get wrong. And then second tan. And we get this number. And with the same number. Now, what if you did not push the equal button? 20 divided by 37, second tan, we get 88. And does that look like 88 degrees? No. So this is wrong. So you have to make sure you push equals or you're going to get the wrong answer. So that was wrong. So 20 divided by 37 equals, get that decimal, now second tan. And there's your answer, 28.4. Okay, keep going. All right, so on this one, so H, O, and A, what two sides are labeled? So, ka, toa. We have A and H labeled. So cos of theta equals A over H. Oops, sorry. So cos of x equals 18 over 23. How do we get x by itself? Ooh, we got to get rid of the cosine. So cos inverse of 18 over 23. So cos inverse of 18 divided by 23 equals, and we get 38.5. 38.5. And does that look like it makes sense? Yeah, that looks like closer to 45 degrees, right? Yeah. All right, one more problem, guys. Okay, don't worry about the word problems. You're gonna have plenty of practice of that later. All right, so H O A. What trig function you use? So ka toa. What uses H and O? That'd be so. Sine of theta equals O over H. Sine of x equals 40 over 41. Okay, so are we going to switch, multiply, or inverse? Inverse, we're trying to get rid of the x as sine. So x equals sine inverse of 40 over 41. Put it in your calculator. So let's say we have this other calculator. So if I did 40 divided by 41, and then I did the inverse, uh-oh, there's an error. What happened? Oh, I forgot to push the equal sign. All right, so let's try again. So 40 divided by 41 equals, we get the decimal, now inverse, second sine. And make sure that you're in degrees when you were doing it, because to change the degrees into radians, it's right next to the second button that we're going to be pushing like 80 times. So that is 77.3. 77.3. And does that look legit? Does that look about 77 degrees? Yeah, why not? As long as it's like 200. Okay, so that's all the problems that we're going to be doing today. Other than that, have a great, wonderful day. Good luck.